I love the view up here. What's this? Shit, not again. Ah!
That's how I've been feeling for the last week or so here. I've been kind of under the weather, suffering from the flu. I'm still under the weather. I haven't recovered much. I've got another time-based corrector. This is the one that is mine. I figured, you know what? Since I'm in the mood for fixing time-based correctors, maybe I'll get mine to look a little better and replace that bad relay and see what the hell else is wrong with it. Let's check it out. That doesn't look good. That doesn't look very good either. This is my time-based corrector that I don't use. My old Hotronics AP41. Yeah, it could look better. It's seen better days. We'll see if we can make this thing look any better. Mine, the bypass doesn't work, and that doesn't look very good. Look at how bad that looks. Again, I haven't used this thing in a long time. Now, the reason I haven't bothered to do anything with this is because I have other time-based correctors in the house that I can use. So this is kind of an extra one. But I thought, you know what? Maybe we'll get this one working. Maybe I'll change that relay that's bad that I removed before and get this thing operational. So, power it off and power it on. You see, it's like it's over. It's like the video in controls don't have any effect. That's the setup control. And the video control, like everything's too bright. Well, first things first, let's crack this thing open and take a look at the power supply in this one. Again, mine hasn't been used. This was given to me a while back, years ago. I don't use it. It's just been kind of sitting in storage. Let's pop it apart and see if I can make this thing look any better. Since I worked on one for a client yesterday, might as well work on this one today, see if I can improve the picture. You know, it's kind of chilly out here today. I haven't turned on the heat. I probably should. It's kind of cool. I don't even know how cold it is because my clock with the temperature gauge on it seems to have fallen down. It's 10 degrees out here. Thought it felt a little bit on the cool side. I should probably turn on the heat. This has been much colder though because this was not sitting here in the shop. This was in my storage locker, which is. The heat doesn't come on, it keeps it like at 5 Celsius. That's where the heat is set, just to keep the frost off. So this is actually quite cold, and that might be why the picture looks as, well, one of the reasons why the picture looks as bad as it does. Cold caps. But it is cooling down a bit. It's getting to, you know, we're into November now. And again, this is the one that I permanently wired on because the relay that this one's got the foil over the EEPROMs. Hey, where's the third EEPROM? This one is different. That other one had a third EEPROM in it because I put tape on it. EEPROM there, EEPROM here. Like, this is a different board than the one I just looked at. There's the jumpers I put in for the relay over there to make it to make it always on, so the bypass isn't there. I could replace that relay. It's just a standard type relay, probably 12 volts. Maybe I'll change the relay out on this thing. But yeah, this is a different board. Interesting. It's the same model. It's an AP41. But it looks like crap. The setup is all out of whack on this thing. Connectors are loose on this one too. As I say, I never fixed them because I never ended up using this thing. It definitely has a connection problem on here. I'll show you the picture. So this is the picture now. See, I can control the tint and but the setup is way too high. Like it's way too high. And I got that's the video level, and the setup I've got it turned all the way down to minimum. but whether that's just an adjustment. But you see, when I tap the board, I think we got a connection problem with this. I'm going to pull the board out and look at the connections. Power supply is different on this one too. Check the power supply out. If you remember the last one, this one appears to have 2 fewer capacitors in it. Because the other one I changed these 2 that are not present on this one, and I changed these 3, and I changed the 2 that were on this board. And if you look on the little board at the back here, this one doesn't have any. Look, this one might be a newer model, but this is definitely a different power supply because the other one had 2 electrolytic caps on it, and this one doesn't. And it doesn't have that big insulator behind here as well. This is the different power supply on this unit. Again, whether this is the original and the other one was updated, or whether this is an updated one and the other was original, that I don't know. But the board is certainly different because if you remember the other one, I'll grab a picture from the other one. It had 3 EPROMs, and this one only has 2. So different chipset. Anyway, I guess it's time to pull this board and see if I can spot anything, any loose connections on there. See if I can get the picture looking a bit better than it does, because this picture doesn't look good. Although when I first turned it on, it did initially. Well, it didn't actually. It looked like crap initially. It was all kind of a frozen picture. Like this. I just turned the power off and turned it back on, and it just did that. Oh, you know what? That's just the freeze button. There's a good example of what that freeze button does. Whoops, when someone's walking, if I freeze it, right, as opposed to a freeze field, right, versus a freeze frame. You see the jitter? I don't know if you can see it or not. The person that was walking down here, are they still in the shot? All right. Anyway, you got both fields, and there was movement between the 2 fields that gives you jitter. Let me pull the board on this. And since I'm into this unit, I'm going to change out the relay while I'm at it, since I'm already into it. We'll see if we can get this thing looking as good as it can look, in case I ever need it, or I decide I want to unload it. But I generally try to keep this equipment around here just in case I might find a use for it someday. First things first, I'll fix up the connectors, because the connectors on this one are loose as well. At least one of them is loose. I'll fix that up. And maybe the S-video connector needs to be redone. And we'll change out the relay, and then I'll go through the board and see if I can see whether, if there's anything loose on here. Because certainly when you tap on it, the picture changes. First, we'll tighten down that connector, re-solder it down to the board. Looks like the Genlock one, someone's tried to do it before as well. I'm not going to be using that, but might as well take care of it while I've got it apart. So I'm just going to prep the board here. This is where that relay goes, where I put the wires in place. We'll use some solder wick to remove the solder. Got to get the solder off the board first, so I can put the new part in. I just use good old solder wick to clear the holes. It helps if you dip it into some liquid flux such as this. Just dip the end in there, and that really gives this stuff really good solder wicking super strengths. It is, I mean, that's what's in it. It has flux in it, but the flux burns off quite quickly. So if you just dip in the end a bit, you can really bring more solder to the surface with it. And the way I check to make sure that I've got it all is that I shine a light through it from below, and you'll see that the light shines through all the pins. So we're good. That's the easiest way to do these. So now I got this new relay. We're going to pop the new relay in, get that in place, and then I'm going to go through the board and give it a good once over like that. The new relay goes in just like that. We'll reattach it from the bottom. Basically, just tack one down first. That'll hold the relay in place so I can do the rest of them. And even though this is a double pull, double throw relay, one side of it's not even being used. The other side, you'll see, goes to these holes here that I don't think got anything connected to them. They're just spares. I think they're just spares on here. All right, that's got, yeah, you see, they don't go anywhere on this side. So it's only using one side of the relay. First things first, let's give the unit a good once over. Look for any bad connections or anything that looks questionable. I'll resolder the controls. Some of these don't look to be great. These controls up front here, where they're soldered down to the board, some of these don't look to be good. I'm going to concentrate in this area because I think that's where the problem is in the area where the controls are. And the fact that when I first fired it up, the picture wasn't too bad, and then all of a sudden it was like somebody cranked the levels all the way up as high as they could go. Oh, these screws are these. I don't know if I have the right size bit. Yeah, these are okay. I'm going to go over the connections at the front here. Like the controls don't even seem like they're pushed all the way through. Like they're soldered on the top side, but they're not pushed all the way through to the bottom here. Yet there are connections on the bottom. Got to mark all the controls where they are, just in case anything ever gets bumped. I know exactly where it was beginning at the start point. I don't want to tweak anything, but if sometimes these controls will go dirty internally, and you got to kind of clean them. So I just want to make sure that any controls that might have to be touched, we know the starting point where it was calibrated originally. I'm not overlooking changing caps on the power supply if necessary, but I don't think the power supply is the issue on this, just from the look of the picture. It looks to be something else that's causing it. Okay, the unit is in bypass mode now, so we know the relay is bypassing. I'll turn on the power. And, hey! Okay, so it's still way too light. Hey, it's not bypassing. Why is it not bypassing? When I turn it off, it goes into bypass. When I turn it on, it's not bypassing. It's on. Well, at least it bypasses when it's off, but the bypass switch is not turning it off. This could have been monkeyed with long before I ever saw it, because somebody had been into it before I saw it. So I'm starting to maybe think that somebody was messing around with some of the settings on here, because you see there are other settings. there are master settings here. I think somebody's been fooking around with the controls. I'll try to frame this so you guys can see. But this is the control here. This is the sub control. You can see what type of range I've got now, right? Either that or the control's bad. That control might need to be cleaned, you know? I think that control, this is the sub control for it. Right? And just like that one, you've got this brightness control over here. It should have a sub control too, which is this one here, I believe. I think these controls just need a shot of cleaner. I'm going to give them a shot of cleaner. So, some neutral in the back. I should get some in there. Oops. Oh yeah, the control's dirty. Well, that would make a big difference right there. Yeah. I will put this on a scope so we can look at the signal, because I'd like to have it so that the detent position on the controls gives me the same levels going out as going in. But let's get these controls cleaned first, because these controls are really bad. Now remember I said I marked these controls so I know where they went, so I can take it back exactly where it was, which was there, and that one is there. Okay, take the controls back where they were, and that's looking a lot better already. Oh man, that's looking a lot better. I'll show you the picture. So I've only cleaned the two controls. I gotta fix that bypass switch because I have to turn it off to bypass, but that's bypass there and that's on. Yeah, I think somebody was messing with the controls. So I've got everything set to the detent position now. Everything's set to the middle. And if I turn it off, the bypass, the picture doesn't change much. Other than it's not quite as sharp, which is to be expected, because whenever you digitize a signal and then take it back to analog, you are going to change the image slightly. But these controls now are not dirty. They're doing what they're supposed to. I think somebody was messing with this. Well, I can guarantee it, because someone tried to fix it. There was a well, first of all, half the screws are missing, but it says busted, bad composite in, YC in, non-functional. This process comp has bad luma. Yeah, but that's how it came to me when it was given to me. A guy gave me this thing a while back. He brought me a proc amp, and he brought me this, and I fixed the proc amp, and he said, I don't want the TBC, you can have it. So I've been sitting on this thing for years because I haven't needed it, so I haven't bothered to try to fix it until today. And I'd like to see if I can get this thing looking half decent. So I did notice that the picture went really dark there for a bit, and when I turned off the power and turned it back, it came back, but it hasn't done it since. I have a sneaking suspicion that's a reference voltage to these controls. Maybe the control is still bad. To make sure this is okay, I'll put the scope on here, and we'll take a look at the output with color bars, so we can see what the levels look like. Because that's really the only way to calibrate one of these things, is to look at something that's stationary, like color bars, stair step, or color bars. Same thing. You got your stair step in there, right? So maybe I'll dig out a camera and we'll hook this thing up. So right now it's looking pretty good. I've got the controls all set at their default level, and if I switch it off, there's the bars without going through the TBC, and there's the bars going through the TBC. Looks like the horizontal centering might be off a little bit. I'm going to check my voltage going to the control, because it was the input to the control was 1.1 volts, still is 1.1. And what about this one? 3.2, that's okay. There, see, it just came back. Basically, I'm checking every stage and watching what's going on while it's happening and looking at the output on the scope. So as I turn on the power, I'm getting a good waveform. When I find the stage where it's got a fault, that will shift when the picture clears up. And that's how we're going to find out where the signal is going bad. If I look at this, we'll see it in the light, and then it kicks in. Now if I look at the scope, now watch. There. It's good now. Still good. This one, right at this stage here, washed out now, and then the levels get back to normal. And that's right in this area here. But I'm clipped to the collector of this transistor. So I pulled the board out, and I got the bypass switch working. There's bypass, and there's TBC. I'm just going to do some tweaking on this thing. It's not doing what it was doing before either. If I turn it off and turn it on, it kicks in right away. But it's solid. It's not doing what it was doing before. I'm curious as to what's going to happen when I put it back in the cabinet. That maybe when the screws are in, something was shorting. Whatever it was, as soon as I took it out of the cabinet, the problem with that video flickering like crazy, like whenever I moved anything, it tapped on the board, it went away. So maybe something touching that wasn't supposed to be touching in the cabinet. Let's just say I got the relay working. I think I've got it pretty close down. I'm not using a scope. So there's TBC off and there's TBC on. I'm just using the plasma screen here as my reference. I don't have a vector scope. Well, I do have a vector scope, but it's not working. So I can't really put it on a vector scope. That's the way to do it, where you can get it absolutely correct. Because you can look at your color vectors. I'm just kind of looking at my color screen to do it. I'm going to look at the waveform on the waveform monitor, or the output on the waveform monitor, compare the output to the input. I can do that. That's not looking too bad there. Again, not something I'd be using because I have other means of time-based correction when I'm capturing, namely high-end capture cards, so I really don't need to add extra processing, which in turn, in my experience, doesn't improve the picture at all. Lets you adjust the color and the chroma phase, etc., but it's something you really shouldn't have to do. And that can also be done on the capture card itself. Anyway, this old beast is up and running again, so I can put it back in storage. I've wasted enough time on this one today, so I'm kind of done with it. Let it sit for a while, get cold, and turn it back on, and it's like this. And I think it's a bad control. We'll kick the color in. If I wiggle the controls here, I got bad controls on this thing. So I think I'm going to have to find some new controls. And then we'll, see what I mean? Cleaning them it worked for a while, but the controls themselves are bad, as you can see. So I'm going to have to try and find some controls. It shouldn't be too hard. We'll dig out some controls for this and replace them. They're just 10K pots. So I'll get some 10K pots and we'll swap them out, and hopefully that'll fix this thing once and for all. Yeah, not like I'm going to be using this thing on a regular basis. It's just nice to have if you've got a problematic tape. It's just another tool in the toolbox. We'll do a part 2 when I get some parts.